How's it going, Jack Tackers, and welcome back to another video for you guys. Today I want to talk about my personal favorite year for movies, that being 2006. Now, what kind of inspired me to make this video was the video I saw on Mouth Film's channel, The Greatest Year in Movie History, which in his opinion, that year was 2007. And while I do think 2007 was a phenomenal year for cinema, I think Mouth Film was just 1 year off and 2006 was a tiny bit better. Now, for context, in the year 2006, I would have been 3 years old, so admittedly, a lot of my love for these movies comes down to nostalgia, of course. However, that's definitely not the full picture. Some of these movies I'm going to be discussing, I have absolutely no nostalgia for, and just genuinely believe they are amazing films. So, with that being said, I kind of divided the year into 3 different categories. First, we'll discuss some of the movies I have immense nostalgia for. Then we'll discuss all the comedy movies because 2006 was probably the best year for comedy. And then lastly, I'll talk about some miscellaneous stuff that doesn't really fit into the first 2 categories. But anyways, with all this being said, let's take a trip down memory lane and rock the suburbs. Over the Hedge is one of the best DreamWorks movies out there. It's so hilarious and clever. The voice cast is fantastic. Bruce Willis voices a raccoon, and I mean, come on, that's epic. Ben Folds' music is so freaking good, dude. I mean, listen to this soundtrack, and you will hear God, I promise. Also, there's many memes made about this movie, mostly involving the Verminator character, and yeah, that guy is amazing. It's just a movie I used to watch all the time as a kid. I remember it always used to make me hungry, especially the scene when RJ opens that bag of chips. I could just smell those chips, man. But yeah, this movie's a banger. Anyways, moving on to another childhood classic, Night at the Museum. Holy moly, do I have a special attachment to this film. You know, I remember going to museums when I was younger and genuinely being kind of freaked out about some of the dinosaur skeletons or taxidermied animals coming to life. It was an idea that was so terrifying yet so awesome. This movie hits hard, man. I feel like it is genuinely so creative. Ben Stiller's incredibly funny in this. Robin Williams as Teddy Roosevelt is just perfect casting. The score is immaculate, dude. I mean, it's just so underrated. There's also genuine emotion thrown into this movie with the relationship between Larry and his son Nick. You can tell there was so much care put into this, and I feel like you don't really get family-friendly films like this nowadays, but who knows, that definitely could just be my nostalgia talking. I love this movie either way, though. Okay, so the last nostalgic movie I want to talk about is, you guessed it, Cars. Probably the most underrated Pixar film of all time. Listen, I don't know what else to say other than I was the perfect age for this when it came out. I was without a doubt the target audience, and you can bet your ass that I bought well, I didn't buy it, my parents did, all the merchandise you can think of. Lightning McQueen toys, Lightning McQueen Crocs, Lightning McQueen TV, Lightning McQueen pajamas. I had it all, bro. I was absolutely obsessed with this movie, and everyone else my same age was too. It was awesome. This movie just amazed me as a kid, and to this day it still does, just for different reasons. For one, I think the animation's pretty phenomenal. I mean, the first time we see Lightning McQueen pull out of the back of Mac, okay, that kind of sounded sus. The first time we see Lightning McQueen, he just looks so freaking shiny and sleek, dude. I mean, it's incredible what Pixar was able to pull off in 2006. The racing sequences are super fun. The humor, in my opinion, is still pretty funny, especially all the scenes revolving around Mater. You see, Mater actually is a really great character in this film, unlike Cars 2, and I think he's super likable. Also, this soundtrack's so damn good. Whenever I'm on a road trip, I listen to the Cars soundtrack and it always hits. This movie's just a masterpiece in my eyes. And I know only Gen Zers will understand this. Alright, well, that's it for the nostalgia category. Granted, there are a lot more movies from this year that I have a ton of nostalgia for, like Flushed Away, Open Season, and Curious George, but I feel like this video would be too long if I talked about every single one, so let's just move on to the comedy of this year. Even though some of the films I literally just talked about could be considered comedies, who cares? We're going to be talking about films with a bit more adult humor now, starting off with Little Miss Sunshine. Now, this isn't technically a 100% comedy. It's actually pretty dramatic at times, but overall it's labeled as both, and that's understandable because it can be a really funny movie at times. A lot of the scenes with Alan Arkin's character is just hilarious. He might actually be my favorite character in the movie, either him or Frank, which is played by Steve Carell. Also, Dean Norris and Bryan Cranston both make appearances in this movie, and as a huge Breaking Bad fan, this is absolutely amazing. Even when the film starts to take more of a dramatic turn, I still really love it. This movie's incredibly beautiful and sweet in many ways, and it just makes me believe in the power of cinema, to be honest. The performances are all fantastic. Paul Dano is in this movie, and he's pretty young, but my God, does he deliver just an incredible performance in this. In my opinion, this movie should have won Best Picture. Granted, I haven't seen The Departed, but whatever. I love Little Miss Sunshine, okay? All right, let's move on to the next movie, shall we? Clerks 2. Yeah, buddy, this is the good stuff. Now, I'm pretty sure this is a hot take, but Clerks 2 is the best of the trilogy. That's right, I think it's actually better than the first film, but truth be told, I love all the Clerks movies, so I suppose it's hard to pick. Either way, though, Clerks 2 is the perfect example of what comedy used to be. Now, I'm not going to get all political here or call comedy nowadays woke, but I think there's still really good comedy out there. There's definitely something so freeing about comedy back in 2006, though. And I'm sure Kevin Smith regrets a lot of these jokes in this movie, as he should. But I don't really care. I still adore this film. It's incredibly crude and immature, but I just can't help but laugh at what I'm witnessing when watching this. My favorite scene of the movie isn't actually outlandish or raunchy, but the scene in which Randall reenacts the Lord of the Rings trilogy is so damn funny. Also, Elias is such a funny character and was a great addition to the movie. If you have not seen these films, you gotta check them out. There's just such a joy to watch. Okay, the last movie I want to briefly talk about in the comedy category is Borat, Cultural Learnings of America for Make Benefit Glorious Nation of Kazakhstan. Or just Borat. Similar to Clerks 2, this really is pushing the boundaries of comedy. In many ways, I'd actually say this is the peak of comedy. That's right, you've heard it here first, folks. Comedy peaked in the year 2006. Moving on. Listen, I don't have much to say about this movie other than it's hilarious and exactly my kind of humor. Sacha Baron Cohen is such a talent and a very funny guy. Honestly, the less you know about this movie, the better, in my opinion. It's just so engaging and never fails to make me laugh. Genuinely one of the funniest films of all time. Too bad the sequel wasn't as good. It was alright, but, you know. Okay, so that about does it for the comedy category. You know, I just want to say that 2006 was very out there when it came to making people laugh. It was unique and clever and never pulled any punches. Comedy in 2006 knew what it was, and I love it for that. So, with that being said, let's get into the last category of movies, the miscellaneous stuff. Starting off with Rocky Balboa. Okay, so I actually have already made a whole review for this movie on the channel, so if you want to hear more thoughts that are a bit more in-depth, make sure to check that video out. But, you know, all I'll say is I think this is one of the best Rocky films ever, and that may be a little bit of a hot take to some people. I just thought it was a great return to form for the franchise and made things grounded again, and genuinely reminded me of some of the earlier films like Rocky and Rocky 2. Also, Rocky Balboa has one of the best lines in cinema history. It ain't about how hard you hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. That is cinema. Okay, moving on to Casino Royale. Oh yeah, this is yet another banger. Casino Royale might actually be the best James Bond movie ever. Daniel Craig is super awesome in this. I also really love Mads Mikkelsen as the villain. He's definitely one of the best Bond villains of all time. Similar to Rocky Balboa, the tone of this movie is just what the franchise needed. This film takes itself seriously and tells a great story about a younger James Bond. Also, this has some jaw-dropping action sequences that just leave you on the edge of your seat and are so freaking fun to watch. This movie's absolutely exhilarating and badass. Martin Campbell, how in the hell did you make such a horrible Green Lantern movie? Last but not least, let's talk about The Prestige. Now, as you're all well aware, Christopher Nolan is my favorite director because he made my favorite film, The Dark Knight. Yes, The Dark Knight released in 2008, so technically 2008 should be my favorite year for movies, right? Well, 2008 is definitely an amazing year for movies, but I still think 2006 is a bit more consistent, and I'm perfectly fine with saying 2006 is my favorite year for movies due to films like The Prestige, because yeah, The Prestige is pretty magnificent and a super underrated Christopher Nolan film, actually. You know, Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman are amazing as always and deliver such great performances in this movie. This film is also very mysterious and has many twists, so, you know, I won't give anything away, but it is very engaging and just a movie that shocks the hell out of you. I also am a big fan of the cinematography, but that's really no surprise in a Nolan film. You know, this movie is just a very intricately woven film, and I really like it. But, yeah, that's 2006 for you. There's still so many other great films that were released this year, but these are all the ones I wanted to talk about today. But of course, I guess, let me hear your thoughts on all this down in the comments below. Do you think 2006 is the best year for movies? Or do you think there's another year that's better? Please let me know, because I'd be super curious to see what you guys have to say. Anyways, yeah, if you liked this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.